Thriller has long been a genre dominated by male directors. For decades, its defining images, violence, danger, pursuit, have been shaped mostly by men, for men. And yet, often outside the spotlight, women have been making some of the most compelling, thoughtful, and quietly radical thrillers of all. Films that don't just chase suspense, but use it to ask uncomfortable questions about power, control, responsibility, and fear. That's the side of the genre I want to focus on today. Welcome to A Take of Her Own, the feminist film club where we celebrate cinema directed by women, 10 films at a time. This week, we're looking at thrillers directed by women, stories that mix moral complexity with relentless tension, push characters to their limits, and keep you guessing long after the credits roll. The settings, eras, and voices couldn't be more different, but each of these films is built around people making dangerous choices in impossible situations. So, let's begin with a story that throws us into a high-pressure situation from the very first frame. Money Monster, directed by Jodie Foster.
Okay, Mark, stay with this guy. I don't know who he is. Alan, there's no chance he's Mike, so just boom him in, see what happens.
For the last few months, hopefully you can listen to our little birdie. Where's that stupid parrot? You got delivery?
Don't move.
Is this a union thing?
Oh, Jesus!
Jodie Foster's Money Monster is a tightly constructed thriller set in the uneasy overlap between high finance and live television, a world where complex systems are reduced to simple, watchable drama, and where disaster, if caught on camera, is treated like good content. The story kicks into motion when a young man, having lost his entire savings on a stock tipped by a swaggering TV finance guru, storms the studio mid-broadcast with a bomb and a single demand: an explanation. What follows is a hostage crisis unfolding in real time, under hot studio lights and the unblinking gaze of millions of viewers who treat the situation with the same detached curiosity as any other breaking news drama. Money Monster is tense and constantly reminds us how quickly a bad decision can spiral into catastrophe, yet Foster uses the crisis to reveal something deeper. She shifts the focus to the mechanics of contemporary media, a system built around relentless performance, where even a hostage situation is treated like just another segment.
What the hell are you doing?
Director wanted a better angle on your face. There's
Kind of, a little shadow.
a little shadow. How do you get a little shadow?
Producers negotiate with police while still barking cues. Cameras keep rolling. Viewers watch, comment, react, and once the signal cuts, move on, as though none of it ever mattered. And then there's the anger that quietly drives the story, the fury directed at Wall Street, at institutions that gamble recklessly with other people's lives and walk away untouched. That anger, still raw in the years after the 2008 crash, isn't limited to the hostage taker. It's also visible in the onlookers outside the studio, who recognize the logic of his despair. Money Monster is gripping entertainment, but Foster also wants us to confront what we usually accept without question: the erosion of trust, the dangerous theater of 24-hour news, and the brutal indifference of financial power. It's a thriller with an unusually explicit moral position.
All our board, our managers, including myself, our pensions were depleted overnight,
Diane.
and our savings gutted just like yours.
Wait,
And
I'm
that's
sorry.
why
Are
we
you trying to make me feel sorry for you? Is that really what's happening right now?
From a hostage crisis fueled by anger at a rigged system, let's turn to an eco-thriller where conviction drives 3 activists into dangerous territory. Here's Night Moves, directed by Kelly Reichardt.
He knows what he's talking about?
Yeah, he was trained by the best, the United States Marine Corps.
You trust him?
Definitely.
Kelly Reichardt's Night Moves is a thriller that builds tension through subtle, relentless pressure. It follows 3 environmental activists preparing to blow up a hydroelectric dam, an act they believe will force the country to finally confront the devastation of its rivers. Reichardt films the entire operation with the precision of a covert mission, the late-night meetings and coded exchanges, the sense that at any moment someone might ask the wrong question or look in the wrong direction. This isn't idealistic protest anymore. It's an attack on state infrastructure, an action that could endanger anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. No matter their motivation, it becomes an act of terror, and the film doesn't flinch from the moral unease that follows.
Is that why you're here? Do you mean, am I gonna call the cops?
Despite their meticulous planning, the fallout from the bombing is messier and more psychologically corrosive than any of them anticipated. Paranoia creeps in. Silence becomes incriminating. Every unexpected knock, every shift in someone's tone feels like a threat. The group's once shared purpose fractures under the weight of fear and guilt. Reichardt crafts suspense out of stillness. Long pauses, averted gazes, the suffocating awareness that there's no way back from what they've done. It's a film whose real impact comes from the internal fractures it exposes.
Well, you don't think she would, do anything stupid, do you?
Staying with stories of individuals confronting the state, let's turn to the historical thriller Mr. Jones, directed by Agnieszka Holland.
Listen, I really need to talk to you. I found something big. It can break this story wide open. It's worse than we thought before.
Paul? Paul?
Agnieszka Holland's Mr. Jones is a historical drama that grips like a political thriller, driven by the hunt for suppressed truth. The film follows Gareth Jones, a Welsh journalist who, in the early 1930s, travels to the Soviet Union in search of answers about its seemingly miraculous economic boom. What he finds instead are whispered warnings and a trail of clues leading towards something much darker. His decision to follow that trail takes him into the heart of Stalin's engineered famine in Ukraine, a landscape of devastation and state-sanctioned terror, where millions lost their lives to a man-made catastrophe. Every scene in Mr. Jones carries a quiet, persistent danger, eyes watching, subtle threats, and the knowledge that one wrong word could cost him his life.
Did you enjoy your trip to the countryside? You saw the happy and proud farmers? The remarkable efficiency of our collective farms? And any rumors of a famine are just that, simply rumors. What are they?
Jones isn't a spy, nor a man of extraordinary power. He's simply a journalist, determined to question what he's told and to refuse the comfort of convenient lies. Holland frames his investigation with a thriller's pacing, the dread of approaching terrifying truth that the world is determined not to hear, and the peril of trying to expose it when powerful institutions stand ready to bury it again. The result is a tense, sobering film about the cost of pursuing facts in a world that would rather remain blind, and about the moral courage required to keep pushing forward when telling truth becomes the most dangerous act of all.
I know what I saw.
Of course you do. Of course you do, but one has to put it in the proper context.
And while we've been exploring historical thrillers, let's shift continents for a moment and visit India in Razi, directed by Meghna Gulzar.
अगर कभी ऐसा लगे कि तुम्हारा राज फाश हो रहा है, तो समझ लो हो चुका है.
आपको लगता है मैं ये कर नहीं पाऊंगी, है ना?
Meghna Gulzar's Razi is a character-driven spy thriller set amid the escalating tensions leading up to the 1971 war between India and Pakistan. Based on real events, the film follows a young Indian woman sent across the border through an arranged marriage to a Pakistani military officer, a strategic position from which she is to infiltrate the household of her high-ranking father-in-law and gather intelligence that could save her country from an impending attack. Her training is rushed, almost improvised, yet she proves resourceful and adapts quickly to dangerous circumstances. She memorizes codes, slips unnoticed through rooms she shouldn't be in, and gradually earns the trust of her new family. But her carefully maintained cover starts to falter the moment a suspicious servant watches her too closely. From then on, every step becomes a life or death calculation.
और काबुली चने भी चाहिए, 8 mm साइज के.
इधर आ जाएं.
Gulzar directs with a steady hand, building suspense through the claustrophobic reality of a woman living a double life inside the walls of her own home. The danger is constant, the personal stakes even higher. Razi is as much about espionage as it is about the psychological cost of loyalty, the way patriotism can demand sacrifices more painful and morally tangled than anyone expects. Measured in pace and rich in performance, Razi delivers a tense human story, reminding us that behind every act of national heroism is someone living with its consequences.
वो जो भी करती रही, अपने मुल्क के लिए करती रही, जैसे हम करते हैं.
Speaking of choices and consequences, let's dive into a love story that goes very, very wrong. Berlin Syndrome, directed by Kate Shortland.
Did you lock me in?
Yes, sure. But next time, I'll tie you to the bed.
Kate Shortland's Berlin Syndrome is a psychological thriller that starts as a brief holiday romance and quickly turns into a nightmare. Claire, a young Australian backpacker drifting through Europe, meets a charming Berlin local and follows him home, only to wake the next morning in an apartment sealed shut with reinforced doors and barred windows. What started as a spontaneous adventure soon turns suffocating, and Claire realizes she is trapped under the control of a dangerously obsessive man who sees confinement as care.
No one can hear you.
Shortland keeps the focus on the claustrophobic daily routine, the quiet negotiations, forced intimacy, and small acts that gradually wear down Claire's sense of self. The pacing is deliberate, allowing tension to pool in the smallest details. The sound of keys turning in a lock, the shifting mood of her captor, the fragile calculations behind every smile. Every movement and every pause carry weight, turning the apartment into a world that seems to shrink around her. While Claire searches for any chance to escape, control and manipulation build gradually, turning her daily routines into an inescapable trap. Berlin Syndrome stays with you because the danger feels real, based on everyday vulnerability and the quiet ways power in a relationship can be abused, leaving a lingering sense of unease.
I miss my mom.
There's no point in missing something you can't have back. You have me.
Continuing with the theme of dangerous relationships, let's move to another tangled story of desire and obsession in Loving Adults, directed by Barbara Topsøe Rothenborg.
Langt de fleste mord handler om kærlighed. Faktisk bliver halvdelen af alle mord begået af ægtefællen eller kæresten. Og det handler næsten altid om jalousi og lidenskab.
The Danish film blends psychological thriller with domestic drama and is adapted from Anna Ekbert's novel, a literary origin reflected in its structure. The story is told through the voice of a detective recounting an unsolved case to his daughter, giving the narrative a personal, reflective tone coloured by his awareness that he may have missed something crucial. At first, the case looks straightforward. A husband kills his wife after she discovers his affair. And this apparent simplicity seems to set up a thriller that gradually rewinds the story toward its tragic conclusion. But the plot soon proves that this certainty is misleading. What we think we know is merely the opening move in a much larger, twisted tale of obsessive love, betrayal, and uncontrolled passions.
Så hun ikke sådan en, man lige forlader. Hun havde en ungdomskæreste. Han døde. Det var forfærdeligt. Han faldt ned fra klinten. Dræbt på stedet.
As the story unfolds, Loving Adults keeps challenging our assumptions at every turn. The detective's theories shift and collide, and the people at the center of the case reveal themselves to be more unpredictable and darker than they first appeared. The film becomes a thrilling tale about the limits of knowing another person and the danger of believing we've already reached the end of the story. It is a slow burner, But as the movie challenges that early sense of certainty, it becomes genuinely gripping. A tangled, spiraling account of a man still coming to terms with how the truth slipped through his fingers.
Hvor har de gjort af livet? Ja, præcis. Hvor fanden har de gjort af livet?
Staying in Europe for a moment, let's move from Denmark to France with The Mad Women's Ball, directed by Mélanie Laurent.
Où sommes-nous? Je ne reconnais pas le lieu. Oh non, pas ça. Non, pas ça. Pas ça, s'il vous plaît.
Set in a women's psychiatric hospital at the end of the 19th century, The Mad Women's Ball blends period drama with the tense atmosphere of a thriller. Mélanie Laurent draws us into a world where a hospital is little more than a socially sanctioned prison, a place to hide women who speak too loudly, feel too deeply, or simply refuse to conform. Eugénie, spirited and stubborn, is locked away after her family discovers she can communicate with the dead. The film never really questions her ability. Instead, it uses this touch of the supernatural to heighten the horror of the very real brutality practiced within those walls. The so-called treatments, restraints and isolation, punishments dressed up as science, are more terrifying than any ghost story.
Ce qui t'arrive, Louise? Mais c'est eux. Ce qui lui arrive, mais c'est vous. C'est vous. C'est vous qui lui faites ça. Vous nous rendez folles.
Faites la terre.
Oh mais oui. Oh mais oui. Mais faites-moi taire, docteur.
What emerges is a portrait of a system designed to crush, not heal, a machinery of control beneath the polite veneer of medical progress. Amid this oppressive environment, the film carves out a fragile thread of hope in the bond between Eugénie and a nurse who begins to see her as more than just a difficult patient. Their connection becomes a source of both tension and momentum, a secret alliance in a place where secrets can get you killed. It's a story shaped by entrapment and constant threat, but also by the quiet, radical courage of women who risk themselves so that others might one day walk free. In Laurent's hands, the tension grows almost imperceptibly, tightening scene by scene. It isn't about jump scares or dramatic reveals. It's the creeping awareness that in this institution, danger is embedded in the walls and in the very logic used to label a woman mad.
Tu sais comment finissent les filles comme toi?
Les filles comme moi.
Staying with stories that explore the mind under extreme pressure, let's move to You Were Never Really Here, directed by Lynne Ramsay. Lynne Ramsay's You Were Never Really Here is a raw, intense psychological thriller following Joe, a solitary, deeply scarred former government operative who now makes a living handling the kinds of jobs no one talks about in daylight. When he's hired to rescue a senator's daughter from a child trafficking ring, his mission quickly goes wrong, plunging him into a nightmare that echoes the unresolved traumas of his own past. The city around him is hostile, every street corner and darkened alley echoing the danger he navigates. Silence and sudden violence alternate in unnerving rhythm, building a relentless tension that seems to press in from every direction. Ramsay strips the genre to its bare essentials, crafting tension through fragmented visuals, stark cinematography, and disorienting camera work that mirrors Joe's fractured state, making his inner turmoil feel as dangerous as the men he's fighting.
McCleary said you were brutal.
I can be.
I want you to hurt them.
Violence erupts suddenly and chaotically, a symptom of a corrupt world. Meanwhile, the film's emotional center lies in Joe's desperate, faltering attempts to protect a girl who has seen too much. Ramsay's direction makes the audience feel his psychological entrapment as intensely as the physical threats he faces. Each moment of quiet is heavy with anticipation. each sudden attack shocking in action and in the emotional weight it carries. Joaquin Phoenix delivers a remarkable turn as a man held together by bruised instinct and lingering trauma. The result is a thriller that lingers through the deep, persistent ache of trauma and the isolation of a man carrying the weight of a world that has long since turned its back on him. From a man deeply embroiled in a criminal underworld, we turn to a woman suddenly forced to navigate it in I'm Your Woman, directed by Julia Hart.
You're okay?
Yeah? Why? What are you doing?
No one's here.
What are you talking about?
Something happened tonight. We have to go. Now, Jean.
I'm Your Woman is a thriller that unfolds its tension gradually, letting unease accumulate at every turn. Julia Hart takes the classic setup of a criminal world spiraling out of control and filters it through someone who was never meant to understand that world in the first place. A woman whose husband has been keeping his business firmly out of sight. When he suddenly disappears, Jean is forced into flight with a baby she barely knows how to care for and a target on her back she never asked for. The film immerses us in Jean's disorientation, making each day feel tense, uncertain, and full of hidden dangers.
And you're not to talk to anyone. No friends, no acquaintances. And make sure you keep the door locked.
The days blur into a cycle of lullabies, whispered instructions, and long moments staring out of windows, with the uneasy sense that someone may already be watching. Through it all, Hart keeps the audience on edge, conveying the fear, confusion, and cautious resilience of someone forced to survive in a world they never chose. It's not a story driven by constant chases or shootouts. Instead, the suspense comes from uncertainty, from the gaps in Jean's knowledge, and from the slow, terrifying realization that her husband's secrets are darker, more violent, and far-reaching than she could have imagined. And as Jean starts piecing things together, the film subtly shifts gears, building into a gripping climax that pushes Jean into sudden action. A tense, atmospheric thriller set in the 1970s, whose quiet, creeping suspense makes every revelation hit harder.
I didn't know that I could lie like that.
And to finish on a high note, let's turn to the queen of thrillers herself, with Point Break, directed by Kathryn Bigelow.
This was never about money for us. It was about us against the system. That system that kills the human spirit. We stand for something.
Kathryn Bigelow's Point Break is a kinetic, sun-bleached thriller that takes a familiar crime framework and gives it a compelling, high-energy edge. At its core lies a classic undercover story. A young FBI agent is sent to infiltrate a group of surfers suspected of carrying out a series of daring bank robberies. What begins as a professional assignment quickly turns into something more complicated, as the line between hunter and hunted, duty and desire, starts to blur. Instead of dwelling on the details of the investigation, Bigelow explores the emotional and ideological forces that shape this world. The surfers, led by a charismatic, larger-than-life figure, reject conventional society in favor of freedom, adrenaline, and absolute presence in the moment.
It's not tragic to die doing what you love.
That's how I want to go.
Hell, I ain't gonna live to see 30.
Their philosophy clashes with the rigid structures of law enforcement, placing the protagonist in a space of growing fascination and inner conflict. Action set pieces, from high-speed chases to skydiving sequences, are staged with visceral energy, but always in service of character and story. Point Break stands out for Bigelow's nuanced portrayal of male bonds, obsession, and the lure of risk. The film explores masculinity as performance, communion, and escape, capturing both its allure and its destructiveness. There is an almost romantic quality to the central relationship, charged with admiration, rivalry, and longing for a life unbound by rules. Stylish and surprisingly reflective, Point Break is a landmark action thriller that showcases Bigelow's talent for blending dynamic stunts with psychological insight.
Who packed my chute? I did. What? You don't trust me? You gotta earn trust. Okay, we'll earn it together. Here, take mine.
Taken as a whole, these films show how women directors are willing to take risks with narrative, structure, and tone. From intimate psychological explorations to stories of moral confrontation, each film challenges conventional thriller tropes while still delivering suspense and excitement. They also highlight the diversity of stories thrillers can tell. The stakes may be global, domestic, or deeply personal, but the tension is always precise, human, and compelling. This selection demonstrates that the genre thrives when creators dare to shift perspective, explore nuance, and foreground characters whose inner worlds are as vivid as the dangers around them. If you'd like to explore any of the movies mentioned today, you'll find viewing suggestions, where they're currently available to stream or rent, in the description and in the pinned comment below. And now it's your turn. Are there any women-directed thrillers you'd add here? Any that left a lasting impression or shifted your perspective? Share your favorite titles in the comments. And if this episode sparked your curiosity, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for another 10 films, another angle, and another take of her own.